Welcome to this story. What you're about to read is not just history. It's also a warning, a mystery, and a lesson. It's the story of a boy who was born having everything: wealth, respect, and comfort. But one day, everything changed. He didn't become a businessman or a political leader. Instead, he became the most wanted man in the world. A name that made the whole world stop and pay attention. For almost 10 years, he disappeared from the world. Then he became the person that the world wanted to erase. But the real story is much deeper than that. It's not just about what he did, but about how he became that person. How power and faith, pain and purpose, wealth and struggle, all these things can change a man and the world. This story will take you from the luxurious palaces of Saudi Arabia to hidden hideouts in the hills of Afghanistan. And the best part? While reading it, you'll also learn English and improve your vocabulary. You'll learn how sentences are structured and how to really listen. This story isn't just history, it's for your future too. By reading it, you'll understand who Osama bin Laden really was. You'll finish this smarter, stronger, and better in English. So relax and take a deep breath. Let's begin, not in 2001 or 2011, but back in 1957, when Osama bin Laden was born, Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. He wasn't born into poverty. He grew up in a comfortable and lavish environment. His father, Mohammed bin Laden, wasn't just rich. He was one of the wealthiest men in Saudi Arabia. He was a big player in the construction business and had the trust of the Saudi royal family. The bin Laden family wasn't royal, but their lifestyle was as luxurious as royalty. Palaces, private drivers, servants, expensive things. All of this was normal for Osama at the time. But inside him, something was different. He had money, but his mindset was different. He was quiet, serious, and humble. He didn't laugh loudly or pull pranks. He went to Al-Azhar Model School in Jeddah, which was famous for kids from rich families. There, he was more religious and serious than the other kids. While others spent time playing or watching TV, he read the Quran and memorized verses. He quickly understood that life was meant for something bigger. Osama believed deeply not in violence, but in religion. And he didn't just believe in religion, he believed in fighting to protect it. Teachers said he asked serious questions about faith. Even during lunch, he'd be lost in thought. He wasn't interested in girls and never missed a class. He looked like an ordinary, serious boy, but inside, he was building a foundation of faith. When he turned 17, a huge shift happened in the world. In 1979, the Soviet Union invaded Afghanistan. This was a global event, and many Muslims saw it as an attack on their land. It changed Osama's way of thinking. He decided that he wouldn't just stay silent and rich anymore. He left his comfortable life, family, and luxury behind and went to Afghanistan. There he trained with the Mujahideen, who were fighting the Soviet army. At first, he wasn't a big warrior. Thin, weak, not a trained soldier. But he had two things: money and unshakable faith. He bought weapons with his family's wealth and trained at camps. He built and trained fighters. Gradually, his influence grew, his respect increased, and his identity started to shift. He wasn't just the Saudi guy anymore. He was becoming a leader and a trusted warrior. In Afghanistan, he learned many combat skills, guerrilla warfare techniques, built connections with other extremist leaders, and believed he had a big responsibility. He also experienced victory. The Mujahideen, with help from America and Pakistan, were able to defeat the Soviet army. This success gave him confidence that if a superpower like the Soviets could be beaten, no challenge was impossible. It was this belief that would later shake the world. During this time, Al-Qaeda was born, planting the seeds of global terrorism. By 1989, the Soviet Union had completely pulled out of Afghanistan. The Mujahideen had won the fight and defended their land. Many fighters went home to their families and countries, but Osama stayed. Why? Because for him, this wasn't just a battle. It wasn't just a fight against the Soviet Union. For him, it was a bigger mission. He believed that if a superpower could be defeated, no force was unbeatable. And his next target wasn't the Soviets, but America. Why America? Let's take a closer look. In the early 1990s, American troops were stationed in Saudi Arabia. This deployment was put in place after the Gulf War to provide security. But Osama couldn't accept this. He felt that the army of a non-Muslim nation should never be on Islamic land, especially Saudi Arabia. America was expanding its influence in the Middle East for oil and power. Corruption and weakness were spreading in Muslim countries under Western ways. This mindset pushed him to take the next step. He thought if Muslim governments couldn't protect the faith, then they needed to step up themselves. Around 1988 or 1989, Osama created a new organization, which started very small, and he named it Al-Qaeda, meaning the base in Arabic. For Osama, this organization was meant to be the foundation of a global Islamic army. Not just fighters from Afghanistan, but warriors from all over the world began joining. Young men from Egypt, Sudan, Pakistan, Yemen, Algeria, and Iraq, disappointed with their conditions and governments, got involved. Many of these youths were easily influenced. But Osama was no longer just a fighter. He became a speaker, a strategist, and a teacher of ideas. He set up training camps in Sudan and Afghanistan. There, he taught how to use weapons, how to hide, how to make bombs, and most dangerously, how to spread hatred. Before 9/11, he and Al-Qaeda had already sent the world their first warnings. Few paid attention to some of these attacks. In 1992, a bomb exploded in a hotel in Aden, Yemen. The target was American soldiers, but the attack failed. Still, this was considered Al-Qaeda's first official attack. In 1993, a truck bomb exploded at New York's World Trade Center. 6 people died and thousands were injured. Osama didn't carry out this attack directly, but it was part of his network. After this, it became clear that America was now their target. In 1998, bomb blasts hit American embassies in Kenya and Tanzania. 224 people were killed and thousands were injured. This attack was planned and carried out entirely by Al-Qaeda. This was the moment the world realized how dangerous Osama really was. Al-Qaeda's network had gone global. In 2000, the USS Cole, an American Navy ship, was bombed in Yemen. 17 sailors were killed. Osama claimed responsibility for it. Around this time, he also started releasing several video messages. He was often seen sitting in a cave, dressed in military gear, calm but serious. He said America was an enemy of Islam and that they would keep attacking until America left their land. Jihad was every Muslim's duty, but the scariest thing was his tone. He wasn't angry or crazy. He spoke slowly, like a teacher. Sometimes he even smiled. That calm, controlled style attracted many young people who were confused. He wasn't just spreading violence, he was influencing minds too. By the late 1990s, America understood just how dangerous Osama could be. The U.S. froze his bank accounts, pressured Sudan and Afghanistan not to shelter him, and in 1998, even launched missile strikes on his camps. But he kept growing. He kept training people, building his army, and pushing forward with his plans. In the mountains of Afghanistan, he started planning a massive operation that would change the world forever. The preparation for 9/11 began during this time. Osama slowly began selecting people fully devoted to his mission. They were given special training and their activities were kept extremely secret. The plan was finalized over many months. By late 1999 and early 2000, he created a special group later known as the Hamburg Cell. This group received one mission: learn to pilot planes, but crash them into buildings. They trained in Germany, Malaysia, and eventually the US, in places like Florida, Arizona, and other states. They lived normal lives. No one suspected their intentions. Osama funded the entire operation, gave orders from Afghanistan, and waited for the right moment. In August 2001, he recorded a secret video. Smiling, he said, "Something big is coming. America will not feel safe." And then he disappeared into the mountains. Part 3. The Day the World Stood Still. September 11th, 2001. A regular Tuesday morning, sunny in America. People were heading to work. Kids were having breakfast. Flights were running normally. Everything seemed calm. But that morning, years of Osama bin Laden's hard work was about to surface. A plan that would change the world forever. The plan involved 19 people, prepared for a death mission. This was the plan that made Osama the most feared name in the world. Let's look at that day in detail. Every step, every minute, just as it really happened. 5:45 a.m., Boston, Massachusetts. The first two hijackers, Mohammed Atta and Abdulaziz Al-Amari, passed through security at Logan International Airport without suspicion. They looked like any other passengers, calm, focused, and ready. They boarded American Airlines Flight 11, headed for Los Angeles, but their intentions were somewhere else. At the same time, other hijackers boarded 4 more planes in different teams. United Airlines Flight 175, American Airlines Flight 77, and United Airlines Flight 93. In total, there were 19 hijackers on the 4 planes, all on deadly missions. At 8:14 a.m., the hijacking of Flight 11 was complete. The attackers stood up, attacked the flight attendants, and pushed the passengers back. Mohammed Atta took over the cockpit and turned the plane south toward New York City. Exactly at 8:46 a.m., people in Manhattan looked up in horror. Flight 11 crashed into the North Tower of the World Trade Center. The impact was so massive that the plane burst apart. The building immediately caught fire. Glass and metal flew everywhere while smoke spread all around. Thousands of people were inside, but no one understood what had just happened. Even news anchors thought it might have been an accident. At 9:03 a.m., the second attack happened. 17 minutes later, Flight 175 crashed straight into the South Tower. Now it was clear this was no accident. It was a coordinated attack. At the same time, the Pentagon was attacked. Flight 77 hit the Pentagon near Washington, D.C. That was the headquarters of the U.S. Military Command. The building was damaged, walls collapsed, and smoke filled the area. At 9:59 a.m., the South Tower collapsed. This was the tower hit by the plane. After 56 terrifying minutes, the entire structure fell down. Amid the smoke, metal debris, and screams, people ran to escape. The streets seemed to shake. Emergency workers rushed to do their jobs. New York's skyline slowly got covered in smoke. At 10:03 a.m., Flight 93 crashed in Pennsylvania. This was the fourth plane that never reached its target. Passengers had heard about the other attacks over the phone and fought the hijackers. The plane went down in a field near Shanksville. Everyone on board died, but their bravery saved America from even greater disaster. The North Tower collapsed 102 minutes later. New York City was engulfed in smoke and rubble. Streets were covered in ash. Firefighters cried out for help. People covered in dust looked like ghosts. America's most famous buildings had been destroyed. In total, 2,977 innocent people lost their lives. Victims came from 90 different countries. This attack was considered the largest terrorist attack in history. People searched desperately for their loved ones and mourned in silence. Osama bin Laden was hiding in the mountains of Afghanistan at the time. At first, he made no statement. He never publicly claimed responsibility. He was just waiting, wanting the world to feel fear first. Behind the scenes, he was smiling. His close associates say he said, "America is weak. We struck at their heart, and they collapsed." Later, a video surfaced showing him laughing and saying the buildings fell faster than he even expected. The whole event was the mastermind's plan. America's world changed in an instant. All flights were grounded. The military was on high alert. Families searched for their missing loved ones. People started writing the names of the lost on walls. That same night, President George W. Bush told the nation, "We will make no distinction between terrorists and those who harbor them." Soon, America discovered that Osama was hiding in Afghanistan under the Taliban's protection. The Taliban were running a strict Islamic regime in the country. The U.S. gave them an ultimatum: hand over Osama or face war. The Taliban refused, and the official war on terror began. On October 7, 2001, less than a month after 9/11, the U.S., along with allies like Britain, started bombing Afghanistan. The goal was clear: defeat the Taliban, capture or kill Osama bin Laden, and dismantle Al-Qaeda. But Osama had already gone into hiding. He knew the mountains and caves well, had money, and had protection. Despite the U.S. attacks, he stayed hidden in the Tora Bora region. With many caves there, he moved quietly, used tunnels, and paid locals to keep quiet. The American forces got close, but he escaped. Osama bin Laden became like a ghost in the mountains. For the next 10 years, the whole world searched for him. He had vanished, watching and waiting, still considered dangerous. The U.S. was ready to try anything, but even the most powerful army couldn't catch him in Afghanistan. Though he stayed hidden, his network didn't just sit idle. His supporters and allies stayed active around the world, while he kept focusing on staying secure and secret. American troops and locals searched every cave, valley, and small village but found no sign of him. Neither dead nor captured, the man who brought down buildings in New York had disappeared into Afghanistan's high cliffs and remote trails. What he did over the next 10 years and how the CIA pieced together clues to find him was yet to be uncovered. In December 2001, U.S. forces found something in the Tora Bora Hills, a vast, complex network of caves that was extremely dangerous. It was believed that Osama was close to the Pakistan border, and it turned out to be true. U.S. jets bombed heavily, special forces searched every cave, and local Afghan fighters helped. Still, he escaped, likely using hidden tunnels, footpaths, or mules, and headed toward Pakistan. It was an excellent escape plan. After that, tracking his location became nearly impossible. The U.S. long believed he was hiding somewhere near the Afghanistan-Pakistan border. The CIA and Pakistan's intelligence agencies worked closely together. They checked intelligence, caves, villages, phone records, satellite images, human sources, everything. But no solid leads came up. Osama became an invisible man. No phone, no internet, no movement, no signals. Sometimes audio or video messages surfaced, where he spoke about the war, America, and Islam. But he never revealed his real location. By the time a video was verified, he had already moved somewhere else. This kept him safe and uncaught for almost a decade. His security didn't rely on just one method. He had set many rules, which made modern technology useless in tracking him. First thing, no digital contact at all. He didn't use phones or emails. All communication was done through trusted messengers called couriers. Second, no internet or social media footprint. No photos or online activity. His face was invisible to technology. Third, the key things were safety and secrecy. He stayed in various safe houses across Pakistan, none of which were in regular cities or near airports. The fourth thing was a loyal inner circle. Only a select few who were completely loyal and devout knew his real location. Although he was in hiding, Al-Qaeda continued its operations. They inspired new terrorist groups in Iraq, Africa, and Southeast Asia. They claimed responsibility for the 2004 Madrid bombings and the 2005 London attacks. Messages were sent through Osama and his deputy, Ayman al-Zawahiri. Al-Qaeda had become more than just an organization. It had turned into an idea that crossed borders. Even though he was invisible, his power kept growing. But over time, U.S. intelligence agencies realized that finding Osama directly was really tough, so they started tracking his most trusted people. This strategy later turned out to be a crucial lead. The CIA changed their approach. Instead of searching for Osama directly, they began keeping tabs on those around him, like couriers and bodyguards. One name came up, Abu Ahmed al-Kuwaiti. He was Osama's trusted messenger. For years, the CIA tracked his activities, calls, emails, daily routines. Gradually, they pieced together a picture of his life. But the real location wasn't found until 2010. That year, a new discovery was made. Al-Kuwaiti was at a safe place. The city of Abbottabad in Pakistan came into focus. But what really caught attention was the house. It wasn't just any house. It was a 3-story building surrounded by tall walls, with no internet or phone lines. The compound had barbed wire, 2 security gates, and very few windows. Trash wasn't taken out. It was burned inside. There were lots of children and women inside, but no contact with the outside world. Neighbors were suspicious, but didn't speak up. Why? Because people didn't ask many questions in that area. The CIA monitored the house for weeks through satellites and local agents. They spotted a tall man pacing on the balcony of the 3rd floor, always alone, never leaving, never talking to anyone. This suggested he might be the key figure, There were no photos, no solid proof. Still, the CIA believed this was likely Osama bin Laden. But there was a big problem. Nobody had concrete evidence to confirm 100% that this was Osama. The decision had to be made by political leaders. President Barack Obama was briefed completely. The intelligence team said, "We've identified a house. Looks like Osama is hiding there. But we can't be totally sure. This mission is risky. It could go wrong, and Pakistan might react badly." Yet Obama decided, if it's him, we have to get him. We can't wait. After that, the world's most mysterious and sensitive mission was planned. Experts built a detailed model of the Abbottabad compound and studied the whole building. Spies and soldiers studied every wall, room layout, and possible exit routes. Then, selected experts from SEAL Team 6 were assigned to the mission. This was the U.S. military's top-secret elite unit. For months, they practiced on an exact replica of the house. Every door, every room mapped out perfectly. This wasn't just any fight. It was a precise and carefully executed operation. They called it Operation Neptune Spear. On April 28, 2011, Obama was informed, "We're fully ready." He said yes. After nearly 10 years of searching, they had finally reached the final stage. Now, it was just a matter of waiting for the right moment. In the coming days, an operation was about to happen that the whole world would remember. But no one knew yet. Outside the White House, no one had a clue. Not Pakistan, not the media, not even the military. The mission was completely secret. This wasn't just about capturing or killing Osama. It was also about sending a message to the world. No matter how hard you try, we will never stop looking for you. Part 4 begins. The night the raid on Abbottabad took place. The date was May 1st, 2011. The night in Pakistan was deep and quiet. Most people on Abbottabad's streets were asleep. Kids had finished eating. Electricity was out in many homes. The neighborhood was fast asleep. But up in the sky, something was coming that no one could see. 2 black helicopters, stealth Black Hawks, quietly flying through the night dark. Inside were 23 Navy SEALs, a translator, a war dog, and years of hard preparation. Their target was the high-walled compound in Abbottabad, where the CIA hoped Osama was hiding. At midnight, 12:30 a.m., the helicopters arrived. The mission quietly began. They slipped behind the hills and entered Pakistani airspace without permission. Inside, the soldiers checked their weapons and night vision goggles. No one said a word. If anything went wrong, no help was coming. As they neared the compound, a problem came up. One helicopter tried to land on the roof, but lost balance due to hot air and tight space. The helicopter started spinning and falling, but the pilot stayed calm. He managed to safely land it inside the compound's walls without anyone getting hurt. The mission changed. Now the SEALs had to enter the building directly. Things suddenly got tougher, but the team was trained for exactly this. Without wasting time, they moved forward with the new plan. They used small explosives to break open doors and walls. The blasts echoed across the neighborhood, but the team kept pushing ahead. In the 3-story compound, the SEALs quickly searched every floor, shouting orders in Arabic to scare and control the people inside. They saw women and children frightened, men hiding. Still, they didn't stop. Their focus was only on one man, whose photos and habits they'd studied for years. On the 3rd floor, 2 SEALs reached a closed room. There was movement inside, a man's voice and a woman's scream. They pushed the door open. The man inside was the center of the world's biggest manhunt for years. The next few seconds would decide whether a decade-long search ended in success or failure. Inside the room was a tall man with a long beard, dressed in traditional clothes. He had no weapon in his hand, but refused to surrender. The tension in the room rose. The next few seconds were about to become some of the most important moments in history. The soldiers immediately recognized him. It was Osama bin Laden. He was standing behind his wife. She stood as his shield. The soldiers fired their weapons. The wife was hit. Then, Osama got 2 bullets, one in the chest and one in the head. It was all over in just a few seconds. The man who had been hiding quietly for 10 years was finally gone. To the world, he had been a ghost, but now he lay on a plain bed, soaked in blood. After years of searching, the mission's biggest goal was achieved. But it wasn't over yet. The team had to gather crucial intel from his network. They kept searching, seizing hard drives, USBs, documents, and other evidence. They even took pictures of the body. They confirmed he had 3 wives and many kids. His son, Khalid bin Laden, was also killed in that mission. That house was like a prison, but he hadn't stepped out in years. Locals heard explosions and gunfire, saw helicopters circling overhead, but most didn't know what was going on. The whole area was filled with confusion and unease. No one realized a major operation against one of the world's most wanted terrorists was happening. By the time the Pakistani army responded, it was already too late. The entire operation lasted just 38 minutes. They burned the damaged helicopter to destroy any sensitive tech, then flew Osama's body out to the US on another chopper. Thousands of miles away in Washington, D.C., President Barack Obama and his top team sat in a small room, watching the operation live through soldiers' helmet cams. The atmosphere was tense and completely still. No one dared take their eyes off the screen. Everyone waited for that one message that would confirm years of searching had finally paid off. Every second felt like an eternity. Then finally, the SEALs said, "Geronimo, target neutralized." Silence fell over the room. Slowly, relief swept through. The 10-year hunt was over. The body was sent to Afghanistan, where DNA, fingerprints, and photos confirmed his identity. As a final step, U.S. officials buried him at sea to prevent any grave or memorial from becoming a shrine. Following Islamic tradition, they made sure no one could ever reach his grave. So the man who had spent years living in the shadows was now gone from the world forever. On May 2nd, 2011, the world shook at the news. Early that morning, President Obama told the media, "In a covert operation last night, Osama bin Laden was killed. The U.S. has successfully completed this mission." Many people were overwhelmed with emotion. Huge crowds gathered in New York and Washington, cheering and celebrating. People held banners reading, "Justice served." Reactions poured in from around the globe. Some felt relief, others saw it as the end of an era of fear, while some questioned the mission's legitimacy. But one thing was clear: Osama bin Laden was no longer a direct threat. Yet his story didn't just end there. Even after his death, understanding his ideas and influence was a challenge. And so begins Chapter 5, The Ghost and the Legacy. Osama bin Laden's death ended his physical presence. But death is never the whole story. Often the real story of a person emerges only after they're gone, when their The documents and records left behind were examined. Suddenly, a lot of new questions came up. Who was he really? What legacy did he leave for the world? Why do his strategies and ideas still resonate so strongly today? When the SEALs cleared out the Abbottabad compound, they didn't just take a body with them. They also seized numerous computers, hundreds of USB drives, hard drives, documents, diaries, letters, DVDs, and flashcards. This intelligence was by far the largest trove of information ever recovered from any terrorist target. The CIA and FBI worked around the clock to analyze all this material. What they found was shocking. Investigators expected to find some plans, but the sheer volume and detail went far beyond their expectations. Inside those walls, Osama wasn't just hiding. He was actively planning, writing, and recording his thoughts. His notebooks and documents showed he was still deeply involved in running Al-Qaeda. He sent secret messages to leaders in Yemen, Somalia, Iraq, and North Africa. These messages made it clear that even while cut off from the world, he was closely monitoring the organization's activities. The instructions included who to target, when to attack, how to recruit new fighters, and how to spread propaganda. He functioned like a secret commander, passing orders only through direct contacts. Fearing technology, he advised his associates not to use phones or the internet. His fear of drones, satellites, and tracking devices meant his hideouts were completely off the digital grid. All communications were delivered by hand. Sure, this method was slow, but it kept his location hidden. This was done slowly and carefully. Osama was seriously worried about Al-Qaeda's future. He noted that the organization's image was declining, and innocent Muslims were dying in attacks. He even planned to rename the group to gain more sympathy. It was strange. The same man who had planned the deadliest attack in world history was now secretly trying to improve the group's image. His mind was always active. He wasn't just focused on the present. He was thinking ahead, plotting future plans. He was planning new attacks. He suggested hitting American trains, major international events, diplomatic and military leaders, and high-value economic targets. Despite being alone, his thinking was cold, strategic, and focused. His family members were still in the same compound. During the operation, his wives and children survived. There were 3 wives and several children in the compound. They had all been living in a confined and controlled environment for a long time. The daughters and sons, including 2 little boys who had never been outside, were handed over to Pakistani authorities, and later some were returned home. The youngest wife, Amal, from Yemen, was injured in the leg during the raid but survived. She told investigators that Osama never left the house. Most of his time was spent studying, praying, and watching old videos. The children had no idea what the outside world was like. Their entire childhood was spent behind high walls with very limited contact. They didn't go to school, had no friends. Normal things like light and safety were foreign to them. After the raid, the world was stunned, wondering how Osama bin Laden managed to hide in a military area for so many years, and how no one found out. His location was within the Pakistani military. It was just a few hundred meters from the academy, in an area where military officers, police, and retired generals lived. The government said they had no knowledge of it. But this claim didn't end the controversy. It only raised more questions. People wondered if someone had helped him. The raid seriously hurt the relationship between the US and Pakistan. It's not wrong to say that his death didn't completely wipe out terrorism. New threats emerged. ISIS grew in Iraq and Syria. Boko Haram became active in Africa, and lone attackers spread terror in Europe. Al-Qaeda weakened, but Osama's ideology was still alive. He gave terrorism a global identity. Even after his death, many groups kept using his ideas and messages. Others started adopting his message too. That's the danger of belief. It doesn't die with the person. Osama wasn't just a weapon. He was a mental and strategic tool. He controlled people's minds by using religion, emotion, history, revenge, injustice, and fear. He knew how to inspire young, angry, lost individuals. He gave them a purpose and made them feel like heroes, even if in reality they were nothing of the sort. He tried to turn destructive acts into something grander. He made lost people believe their lives had special meaning. What set him apart was how he presented his ideas, not with aggressive slogans, but calmly and in control. He spoke slowly, understood people's feelings, and recognized their weaknesses. That's why many were drawn to him. His power wasn't just in his words, but in his ability to see the emptiness inside people. And that challenge still faces the world today. That's why his story isn't just about the past. It serves as a warning for the present. Now, the most important question is, what should we learn from this whole story? It wasn't just a tale about war. It wasn't only about politics or religion either. The roots run much deeper. Calling it just one man's story isn't enough, because it involves ideology, society, and human behavior. It shows how a belief, when out of balance, can turn into extremism. It shows how pain and frustration can turn into hate. And it shows that when power and resources are used in the wrong way, the consequences can affect the entire world. Osama saw himself as a protector and a fighter. He believed he was working for a greater cause. But the legacy he left behind was ruined cities, broken families, orphaned children, and a world full of insecurity. His story doesn't ask for admiration. It asks for understanding. If we don't try to understand how he ended up on that path, we won't understand why others go down the same road. Osama's childhood wasn't spent in harsh conditions. He had resources, opportunities, and could have chosen a completely different life. He could have made a positive contribution to society. But he chose another path. That's when everything changed, and his choices affected millions of lives. He embraced anger, accepted harsh ideas, and saw violence as the answer. His decisions changed countless lives in the end. His end wasn't what many people imagine. His last days were spent in hiding, cut off from the world, caught between uncertainty and fear. That's the main takeaway from his story. History's purpose isn't just to remember events, but to learn from them and build a better future. This account is shared purely for historical and educational reasons. The events described are based on publicly available historical sources and well-documented facts. It doesn't support any form of violence, terrorism, or hatred. The goal is simply to understand history, learn lessons, and encourage learning through real events. Knowledge, dialogue, and peace are the best way forward.